Just hours after receiving his prisoners of war, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, wanted for crimes against humanity, has once again declared war on Gaza, claiming that the resistance breached the ceasefire. Netanyahu, ever the manipulator of loopholes and master of manufactured excuses, has a long history of turning peace agreements into weapons of war. He did it in Lebanon, where every truce became a ticking time bomb, and now he's replaying the same script in Gaza. The truth is, the so-called ceasefire was never peace. It was a setup, a calculated pause to recover Israeli captives and prepare for another round of destruction, hidden behind diplomatic jargon and American applause. For those still unfamiliar with the new ceasefire deal, let's be clear, it handed Israel de facto control over nearly half of Gaza, a terrifying clause that guaranteed renewed conflict, not reconciliation. It was a deal built on domination, a blueprint for the occupation to continue under new language. And Netanyahu's obsession with demilitarizing Gaza means only one thing: total elimination of any form of resistance. So this redeclaration of war was not a surprise. It was a prophecy waiting to be fulfilled. Israeli analysts themselves admit it. They say Netanyahu will not rest until Gaza is crushed. Israel's defense minister has now publicly ordered the IDF to begin a new mission: to destroy Gaza's tunnel network, the same lifeline that shelters civilians and defends the enclave, and by doing so, the regime has effectively ripped the ceasefire to shreds. And Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, even confirmed this on X, writing, and I quote, "Israel's great challenge after returning the hostages will be the destruction of Hamas tunnels directly by the IDF and through an international mechanism under US leadership. This is the meaning of Gaza's demilitarization." And that single statement tells you everything.
This is not only the end of a war. This is the end of an age of terror and death, and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of...
This was never about peace, it was about control. That's why journalists and analysts like Max Blumenthal warned us that what's coming next is not just another military operation. It's a full-scale regional escalation that could redraw the map of the Middle East, a war engineered by the Zionist extremists in Tel Aviv who still dream of their Greater Israel project. Before I show you Blumenthal's detailed breakdown, kindly like and share this video to help push it through YouTube's suppression wall. Israeli bots and algorithmic censorship are working overtime to bury this truth. If you can write a comment, leave a dot on the comment. Your engagement matters more than ever. Subscribe if you haven't already.
This could have all been done by Biden. Tony Blinken could have had these Israeli POWs and captives who are now being released on the White House lawn. Biden could have vied for the Nobel Prize, but he chose not to. Tens of thousands were murdered. Hundreds are being pulled from the rubble every day that we didn't even know were dead. Gaza is 83% destroyed. And so this is actually the legacy of Biden's failure. And Donald Trump has gotten the quote unquote win after several betrayals of the peace negotiators of his own. So again, my feeling today is anger, bitterness, sorrow, because this could have all been ended a long time ago. And many of the Israeli captives in Gaza who were killed in mostly Israeli airstrikes would still be alive as well.
How soon before the IDF resumes bombing?
Well, right now what they're doing is they've activated their proxies in Gaza. Israel has armed and is protecting behind the so-called 53% line of Israeli control a series of ISIS-linked gangs and collaborator families, specifically Yasser Abu Shabab and his gang, Yasser Abu Shabab, who somehow got a Wall Street Journal op-ed and a feature in Barry Weiss's Free Press, and is just a local gangster whose main achievement was looting all the aid that was coming into Gaza and making sure that it was sold back at extremely high prices to the starving population. They're now in firefights block to block against Hamas, and they have killed notable people in just the last 48 hours across Gaza, as well as the Dagmash family, a notorious gun running family in Gaza who has collaborated with Israel. And this is being used by the pro-Israel press in the US to paint Hamas as some kind of vicious band of killers, because they're actually trying to clean up what's left of their own society. Donald Trump on Air Force One was asked about this, and he said, actually, we've given Hamas the leverage and the latitude to start restoring stability in Gaza. He actually let one slip. You're not supposed to say that. And what's happening now is that aid is actually getting through. The trickle of aid that's coming in is actually getting through, because the bandits that looted it throughout the last 2 years are no longer present. Let's be clear. These were Israeli-backed bandits, and their job was to prevent the aid from getting in. And they were promoted by all of the Israeli intelligence collaborators in our own society. How soon will it begin? Well, I've seen instructions that were, that came out in Telegram channels in Hebrew for Israeli soldiers who are guarding the 53% line and behind there, closer to the Gaza's frontier with Israel. And they've been told that if you see anyone approaching from Gaza, shoot near them, but don't shoot them. We need to wait until the hostages come out. Once the hostages are out, then we can fire at will on anyone inside Gaza. So I think once Hamas gives up its leverage, as it has been forced to do, we will see more Israeli violence directed against the population in Gaza. And we will see more Israeli efforts to push Hamas into confrontation. And I think that there's another element here, which is Netanyahu's own political future.
Former British diplomat Alastair Crooke added yet another chilling perspective, saying that beyond Gaza, a much larger confrontation is brewing, one that could pull in Iran and reshape everything we know about regional stability.
Important, very important in a human way for the families and for the people who will be released. And the Palestinians will, well, not all of them that were originally indicated seem to be likely to be released. But it was important. Is it a peace deal? No, it is a ceasefire. And there's a vast difference between a ceasefire and a peace deal. And so the ceasefire is a limited part of it, and most of this is happening, and it's a big show, and it's, reality TV, and everyone claims success. The problem is that that's phase one of an agreement. Phase two and phase three were really never properly defined, really never properly thought through, really never properly agreed. So what happens when we get to the end of phase one is going to be very moot, because phase two calls for a new security force that will come into Gaza. It calls for Hamas to be disarmed. And I don't think that Hamas are going to be disarmed. I don't think they are going to agree to the other elements of, the broad, they're not clearly defined. They don't agree that Gaza should be run by foreigners. They say it has to be run by Palestinians, which is natural enough. And I think what is quite significant is that Hamas, in going to Sharm el-Sheikh, where this agreement with Witkoff and Kushner was agreed, was backed by everyone, including Palestinian Jihad. All of the factions of Gaza realized, perhaps, holding hostages, yes, it gave them leverage, but, perhaps it was time to let that go. It was a diminishing return, if you like. So I think, yes, what we are going into is a pause. And I think for many think of it, and one very senior Iranian official said, yes, we may be having a ceasefire in Gaza, but it is linked, and it is also about the end of a ceasefire somewhere else has been taken. You've laid it out very, very precisely, but the toll on Israel, I mean, is the fact, I mean, you know, there were three ambitions set by Hassan Nasrallah for this for the resistance, if you like, in Israel. One was to exhaust Israel militarily. Now, it hasn't been completely achieved, but it's been partly achieved. The second one was to destroy the cohesiveness of society, or to destroy, if you like, the cultural structures that gave longevity to Israel as the idea. But the most important one was to put into question really not only the moral basis of Zionism, but the practical basis of Zionism. Is there any practical way of running a state on apartheid lines where you privilege one community, one group of people, over another with whom you share the same land? And there's never been a solution to that if they will not assimilate into a state. And so I think one can say at the end of it, you know, the pressures and the tensions that you see being imposed on Israel and Netanyahu are almost exploding. And I think, you know, this is what we are going to see. And the final part of this, the final and most important part of what's happening, is that Israel utterly depends on the United States financially and militarily. We all know that. But that's changing. And you know that better than me. I'm miles away. But you know what's happening amongst young Americans,
Right.
both the MAGA group and also amongst Democrats. And, you know, it's a big breach taking place now, I think, with Trump. I listen to what the young MAGA people are saying. And I mean, whether you agree with it or not, I mean, they're saying that, you know, the story about who killed Charlie Kirk, it doesn't add up. It's a lie. It's a cover-up. He wasn't killed by Levinson. There was clearly, because there's no evidence to back it up. It's just another narrative. And they're very angry about that. And who are they blaming? Well, they are saying, you know, we talk about Epstein, now we talk about Charlie Kirk. The cover's up. When are we going to get the honesty out of this? And so, and they are turning increasingly against Israel, partly because of this and partly because they feel, you know, the American amendment on free speech is being attacked by Israel. It's being bought. The amendment, US amendment, constitutional amendment for free speech is being bought by extremely wealthy businessmen in the United States. And that is angering them. So there's a big...
Thank you so much for watching. From the depth of my heart, I truly appreciate your unwavering support for honest journalism. Your subscription means the world to me and helps keep this work alive and floating. Take a moment to hit that subscribe button and stay with me on this journey. Until next time, God bless you.